All right, welcome to another deep dive where we deep dive into whatever sources you throw our way.
That's right.
And today we've got kind of a fascinating pairing, I think.
Yeah.
We've got some excerpts from Dante's Divine Comedy. So we're talking Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, that whole deal.
9 yards.
That whole thing, alongside selections from the Law of One material.
That's right. Channeled by Ra.
Yeah, channeled by Ra. So this is, I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation to see how these two potentially very different
Yeah, they're very different.
worldviews, I guess you could call them, interact with each other.
Well, and I think it's interesting because we're looking at like a cornerstone of Western literature. Dante's vision of the afterlife, which is so vivid.
Right, right.
And then this like channeled cosmology,
Yeah, well, yeah.
So he's talking about a contrast, right?
Yeah, and so specifically with the Dante material you sent us, it looks like we're really focusing on the Inferno in this one. So we've got like, the descent into hell, right? All the different figures he encounters. I'm seeing names here like Ferinatada, Tegiaio, Jacopo Restitucci,
Oh, yeah.
Arrigo, Mosca.
Mosca?
These are not household names for me, I gotta say.
No.
But it looks like we've got, a lot of discussion of sin, right?
Right.
Punishment, divine justice.
That imagery of the torment, the physical, visceral torment,
Yeah.
that Dante portrays so well.
Yeah. I'm seeing something here about the river Styx, right?
Yeah.
And the disdainful heavenly messenger.
Yeah.
So, clearly some interesting imagery there.
At the gates of Dissos.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, and then, we also see some reflections on like the categories of sin, right? Like incontinence, malice, bestiality, and usury, like
Usury.
yeah, I feel like we could have a whole episode just on that, right? Like what is the deal with usury? So much, fascination with that back in the day.
Well, and I think that speaks to like the historical context, right? Like the economic anxieties of the time.
Yeah.
It's not just like an abstract theological thing.
Totally.
It's very much rooted in the material reality of Dante's world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And then of course, no discussion of Dante would be complete without that figure of Geryon.
Ah, Geryon, right?
Right. So we gotta talk about that. And then you've also highlighted some passages from the Purgatorio, right?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. The Purgatorio, you've got souls burdened by pride, by envy,
Right.
Working through these things, and then these glimpses of paradise, right? And these discussions about the nature of the blessed,
Okay.
the angels, divine will, like that starts to get really heady.
Yeah. I'm already getting a little overwhelmed just thinking about all the layers that we have to unpack.
We're gonna take it slow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So then on the other side, we've got the Law of One, and this is a big chunk of material here.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, you've got selections spanning all 5 books.
Wow.
Touching on this fundamental concept, the Law of One itself.
Right.
Which basically states that all is one.
Yeah.
All is the creator.
Right.
And then you've got these ideas of the densities of consciousness, right?
Okay.
So 3rd density, that's where we are now.
Right.
Self-awareness, choice.
Right.
4th density, that's all about love and compassion.
Okay.
5th, you've got wisdom. 6th, you're starting to approach unity.
Wow.
And so on and so forth, right? And then, of course, you've got the harvest, right? This transition between densities and how it all works.
Okay.
And then, this is what I find really fascinating. You've got the wanderers.
Okay.
So these are beings from higher densities
Right.
who choose to incarnate here to help us. Right. And in the veiling process, which is why they don't remember who they are
Oh, interesting.
when they come here. Right.
Right. Okay. So we're all kind of playing on hard mode here.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot to unpack already, and we haven't even gotten into the energy sensor.
The chakras.
Yeah, the chakras, right, and their colors and all of that. The whole idea of healing.
The mind-body-spirit complex.
Yeah. The mind, body, spirit. I love that terminology.
It's so raw.
It is very raw. And then, free will, the role of free will, catalyst, that whole thing.
Catalysts, those experiences that help us grow.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we also see, this concept of the Orion group.
Ah, yes, the negative guy.
Right. The so-called negative, entities, I guess you could call them.
Right.
And then you've got some, stuff on the higher self, space-time, time-space. Like, this is getting real.
That gets trippy, yeah.
Gets really out there.
Definitely.
And then you even have some, like, personal stuff, like from book 5.
Yeah, but the instrument, Carla, and the group's experiences.
Right. Okay, so So this is a lot to cover.
It is.
So for you, dear listener, I think our mission today,
Our quest.
yeah, our quest today is to try to figure out what happens when we hold these two seemingly very different worldviews up to each other.
Yeah, it's side by side.
Right. Can we find, are there any resonances? Are there any surprising echoes?
Unexpected connections.
Yeah, right. Between Dante's very, very visceral journey through, the afterlife.
Yeah, the medieval Catholic worldview.
Right, right. And then this more, I guess, modern cosmology presented by
This
Ross.
esoteric, yeah, this esoteric system.
Right, right. So specifically, I think we want to look at how both of these systems, these worldviews, address things like the consequences of our choices, right?
Right.
Like
No.
what happens when we make certain decisions.
Karma, right.
Karma, yeah, yeah, exactly. The journey of spiritual development, right?
Evolution of consciousness.
Exactly, yeah. And then finally, this question of the nature of higher realms, right?
Heaven, paradise.
Paradise, yeah, yeah. What does it even mean to talk about these things?
Right. What are those?
Yeah. So let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I mean, one of the things that strikes me right away
Yeah.
is how both Dante and Ra, although they're coming at it from such different perspectives, they both really emphasize this idea that choices have consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, like that the decisions we make have a lasting impact.
Yeah, and for Dante, it's so clear, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, the Inferno is just this stark depiction of that.
Yeah.
The sins you commit in life directly correlate to your eternal suffering.
Right, right. It's very cause and effect.
Yeah, it's very, like, almost legalistic, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And you see it in the way that he categorizes the sinners, right?
The circles of hell, yeah.
Yeah. The circles of hell, right? Like each circle is dedicated to a specific type of sin.
And the punishments are so specific, too.
Right. Yeah. And the punishments are so perfectly tailored to the sin itself.
Right, like contrapasso.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, you think about someone like Ferinatada, right?
Locked in this fiery tube.
Yeah, and even in damnation, right?
Sort of clinging to that pride.
Still clinging to that pride, right? Like he's still so caught up in his earthly, political
concerns.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or those poor souls consumed by avarice.
Forever rolling those weights.
Yeah, forever rolling those weights back and forth. I mean, it's such a visceral image.
Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah, and it leaves you with no doubt about the severity of the consequence.
And the permanence of it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like this is it. This is what you've earned, right?
Right.
Whereas Ra offers a slightly different perspective, right?
Well, it's more vibrational, I would say.
Right. Okay.
It's not so much about a judgmental God assigning punishments,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more about, like, you gravitate towards the frequency that aligns with your polarity.
Okay.
So whether you're service to others or service to self,
Right.
you're going to end up in a realm that resonates with that.
Okay, so it's more like you're drawn to a certain
Drawn to it, yeah.
vibration.
It's like a tuning fork.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So for you, listener, instead of, a divine decree sending you to a specific circle of hell, Ra is suggesting that it's more about your own energetic state.
Yeah, your own accumulated vibrations.
Right. So the choices you make, they kind of build up this energy, this vibration.
And that determines your experience.
Okay, so that's a really interesting contrast, right?
It is.
And I'm wondering, does Dante's Purgatory then, with its emphasis on purification, on working through flaws,
Yeah.
does that align at all with Ra's idea of needing to, resolve imbalances before you can progress?
I think there's a connection there.
Okay.
I mean, purgatory, you can see it as like this process of adjusting your vibration.
Okay.
Shedding that negativity, becoming attuned to a higher frequency.
Right. So it's like you're kind of fine-tuning your instrument.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
And the prayers, the penances, all that stuff, you could see that as like a conscious effort to purify the mind-body-spirit complex.
Right, right. So even though Dante's using this very specific religious language, we can still see some parallels.
Some echoes, yeah.
Yeah. Some echoes with the more esoteric language of the Law of One.
Yeah, and I think the difference is in the time frame, right? Like Dante's Purgatory, it has a duration, right?
Yeah, right.
You spend a certain amount of time there, and then you ascend.
Right.
Whereas Rise density progression, that's like an ongoing cosmic cycle.
Right. So it's more like a spiral, right?
Yeah, it's more like a spiral.
Than a straight line.
Yeah, you're constantly evolving, growing.
Right. Right. That's really interesting. And then I think another really interesting point of comparison here is the whole idea of guidance,
If
right?
guidance, yeah.
So Dante, he has Virgil, right?
His guy through hell and purgatory.
Right. And then Beatrice leads him to paradise.
Right.
So these are very clear, authoritative figures.
Showing him the way.
Yeah, showing him the way, explaining things.
I did things, yeah.
And we even have that scene, right, at the gates of Dis where the heavenly messenger just shows up.
Just blast those dudes.
Yeah, and basically says, like, get out of my way, right?
There's divine authority here.
Yeah, it's very hierarchical,
It's
right?
very top down.
Yeah, like there's a clear chain of command
Yeah.
in the spiritual realm, whereas the Law of One presents a very different model.
Very different, yeah.
Right. So the Confederation of Planets, of which Ra is a part,
Right.
they offer guidance, they offer information.
But with respect for free will?
Right. Yeah. It's not about imposing. It's not about dictating.
No.
It's about offering, right?
Yeah, it's about catalyzing understanding.
Right. And Ra's is very clear, right?
Very clear.
That they cannot interfere with an individual's choices.
Absolutely. They can't mess with free will.
Yeah. So it's really fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So, listener, think about it this way, right?
Yeah.
Dante's journey, he's got these very specific guides.
Appointed guides.
Yeah, almost like divinely appointed guides.
Right.
Whereas Ra's teachings suggest a universe where help is available, but you have to seek it out.
You got to be open to receiving it.
Yeah, you have to be open to receiving it, and it's not going to be forced on you.
No.
That image of that messenger forcing open the gates of Dis, it's such a contrast to Ra's approach.
Yeah, it is.
Which is always very cautious.
Yeah.
Right? Always very mindful of not infringing on free will.
Yeah, and even when they're dealing with the Orion group, right?
Yeah, right. Even when they're dealing with the so-called negative forces.
I'm not going to just barge in.
Yeah, they're not going to just, come in and fix everything.
No, they're bound by certain rules.
Right. And Ra talks about this idea of quarantine, right?
Of quarantine, yeah.
And these limitations that are placed on interactions
Right.
to prevent undue influence. And that's really interesting, right?
It is, yeah.
Because it suggests that, free will is so important.
It's paramount.
Yeah, it's paramount that even positive beings, right?
Right.
Are not allowed to just, come in and do whatever they want.
You can't just override our choices.
Right. And I think that's a really important point to emphasize because, sometimes we might think, well, wouldn't it be great if the good guys just came in and fixed everything?
Right, just solved all our problems.
Right, but Ross seems to be suggesting that that's not really how it works.
No, that's not how it works.
Because free will is so fundamental. It's the foundation.
Yeah, it's the foundation of our reality.
And this density, yeah.
Yeah, this density. And even the Orion group, right?
Right.
They're not allowed to just, come in and take over.
Or they have to work through more subtle means.
Right. They have to work through influence.
Right? Influence, yeah. Thoughts, emotions.
Yeah, thoughts, emotions, they're playing the long game.
They are.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating how both of these systems, address this question of guidance.
Yeah, it is.
But in such different ways.
It's like one is very hands-on.
Yeah.
And the other is very hands-off.
Yeah. And I think, to kind of wrap things up here, I think it's also worth looking at, what is the ultimate goal in each of these narratives, right?
Right, like what's the end game?
Yeah, what's the end game? So for Dante, it's pretty clear, right?
Yeah, it's the beatific vision.
It's the beatific vision, right?
Yeah.
It's the direct experience of God in paradise.
Union with the divine. Yeah, it's like a final culminating union.
Right.
Whereas Ra describes something that's a little bit more continuous, right?
Yeah, it's a process of evolution.
The process of evolution through these densities.
New densities.
Yeah. So each density offers new lessons, new opportunities for growth.
New challenges, new experiences.
Right. And the ultimate aim is union with the one creator.
In seventh density.
Right. But it's seen as a stage in this infinite journey of consciousness.
Right.
It's not necessarily a final endpoint.
No, it's not a full stop.
In the same way that Dante's Paradise is, right?
Yeah.
It's more like a comma.
Yeah, a comma, a pause, a transition.
Yeah, transition to something else, and then I think the concept of wanderers adds this whole other layer, right?
Yeah, it does.
To Ra's model because it's like It's like these beings are intentionally descending.
To help others.
Yeah, to help others, to serve others.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's explicitly present in Dante's, ascent to paradise.
Right. Dante's journey is very much about his own personal salvation.
Yeah, it's about his own understanding of the divine order.
Right.
Whereas, the motivation for progress in Ra's teachings often involves this desire to serve others.
To facilitate the evolution of consciousness.
Right. So there's this element of selflessness.
Yeah, there is.
That's really interesting.
It is.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just amazing to me how these two works that come from such different contexts.
Such different times, such different worldviews.
Yeah, they both grapple with these really fundamental questions.
About good and evil, about choice and consequence.
About transcendence.
Transcendence, what is the nature of reality?
Right. And Dante uses this very powerful language of poetry and allegory.
Right, grounded in his theological framework.
Right, whereas Ra offers this very complex cosmology.
Yeah, based on this channeled information.
Right, and yet, both of them, they both emphasize the importance of inner work.
Absolutely.
Right, so Dante's protagonist, he has to confront his own weaknesses.
He has to understand the nature of sin.
Right, he has to go through this process of purification.
Yeah.
And Ra talks about the need for self-awareness, the balancing of energy centers,
Right.
the conscious choice towards love and service.
Yeah.
So the methods differ, but the focus on internal transformation is there in both.
It's common thread.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess to kind of bring it all together for you, listener.
Yeah, to summarize.
We've explored how both Dante and Ra address this question of the consequences of our actions.
Right.
Dante with this very fixed system of divine justice.
Yeah.
Ra with a more fluid, vibrationally based harvest.
Yeah.
We've looked at the different approaches to guidance.
Direct intervention versus free will and seeking.
Exactly. And then finally, we've considered the overarching journey.
Dante's ascent to paradise versus Ra's continuous cycle.
Right. So much to think about here.
So much, yeah.
But one thing that I think is particularly intriguing and that I think we touched on earlier
Yes.
is this idea of the finality of Dante's hell.
Right.
These souls, they seem to be locked in this eternal suffering.
Yeah, there's no way out.
Yeah, there's no way out. There's no redemption.
No parole.
Yeah, whereas Ra's framework, even for the negatively polarized entities,
The service to self folk.
yeah, it suggests that there's still a path
There's still a path, yeah.
of learning, of evolution.
It might be a difficult path,
Yeah, it might be a difficult path.
but it's still a path.
Right. So that raises some really, really interesting questions, I think, about the nature of ultimate justice.
And the potential for change.
Yeah, the potential for change. Like, is it really
And
final?
Is anything truly fixed?
Right. Yeah. Or is there always the possibility of growth, of transformation?
It's a big question.
It's a huge question. So, listener, here's a final thought for you.
To kind of chew on.
Thunder.
To ponder. Yeah, exactly. How might exploring these concepts from the law of one, how might that reshape your understanding of Dante's hell?
Yeah, that seemingly immutable nature of it.
Right. Yeah, and conversely, how might Dante's portrayal of individual responsibility?
And the consequences of specific actions.
Right. How might that help to ground the more abstract cosmic principles that Ra presents?
Yeah, how do they inform each other?
Yeah. Could these two very different narratives actually offer complementary perspectives on this journey?
The human journey, the cosmic journey.
Right. The human journey, the cosmic journey, it's all connected.
It's all one.
Yeah, it's all one. So we really encourage you, listener, to dive deeper into both of these works.
Yeah, explore them further.
Based on what we've talked about today, I think you'll find some really, really fascinating insights.
Layers of meaning, for sure.
Yeah, layers of meaning, and who knows, you might even find some connections that we haven't even thought of.
And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, share your thoughts.
Yeah, share your thoughts, share your insights, share your questions.
What have you discovered?
Yeah, this is a conversation, right?
It's a deep dive.
It's a deep dive, and we want you to be a part of it.
Dive in with us.
Dive in with us. So thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.